it's Houston and somebody playing, and it's not the same thing. So I think the ratings kind of go by the cities and the franchise history and how you build that up. So how to change that, I'm not sure. So the one thing that's been changing, I think, with baseball that's been great is the drug testing. I mean, somebody said something about steroids, and it's the truth. I mean, you see the game changing back, you see the guys' bodies coming back. Baseball was a skill game, and there were guys sitting doing things that nobody ever did before, and doing it every year, and 40 guys doing it. So something's wrong with that. When, you know, the greatest that ever played the game, you know, did it once or twice, and then you see guys doing it 5 times, 6 times, hitting 50, 60, whatever. And it's continuing. So they do that all the way through the minor leagues. They test with steroids. HGH testing now is getting into the minor leagues, which will end up meaning it's coming to the big leagues, which really creates a level playing field. And so that's one of the things they've been doing, and I think it's great.
Let me ask a question. You talk about steroids, right? And I hear this a lot, being in our end of the business. You know, you guys have to be role models for the kids, and, you know, the unfortunate Putin situation where the young man died. And I agree with that to a point. But how much of the responsibility, and you're fortunate enough not just to be a former player, you know, your sons were athletes. When does it get to a point where sometimes there is too much pressure? Parents are living their lives vicariously through the kid, and the kid feels that pressure from the parent, and that's why they're taking the juice, and it's not because it's the athlete thing. I don't know. Both of you.
I don't know. I think it's different for every individual. You know, I always tell people, I go, I'm glad I just wasn't put in that situation. You know, like, I don't know what I would have done, say if Mark Messier or Wayne Gretzky or someone I really looked up to said, hey kid, this will help you out. I really don't know what I would say, because, you know, you try and work out as hard as you can. You try and get as much sleep. You try and do all this. And if someone you looked up to, you know, said, this is what everybody's doing, you know, I really don't know what I would have done. I look back on it and I go, I'm glad I never got, you know, caught up in that. And the NHL never really, we saw it creeping in before they went to drug testing. I think as the money went up, you know, the competition to get jobs, especially guys that were having to fight, and they were all of a sudden becoming bigger and bigger, and it was getting dangerous for the top fighters, and, you know, it was able to get cut off before it kind of filtered into everybody. And, you know, it started with the recognition with baseball, really, is where it became the focus. But I'm sure it went on in every sport, just didn't get pronounced as it did in baseball. So I don't really know, you know, it's a difficult thing. I think that the education now is so important. I think it's all the way down, you know, through the high school levels now. The coaches are all done on it. But when it was kind of out in the gray area, I can see how some guys could get stuck in that situation and regret it later and say, why did I ever do that? But now I think, you know, with the education and everything, there isn't quite that thing to fall back on, because there is knowledge about it. Everyone knows the ramifications of taking it, not only health-wise, but reputation-wise. And, you know, it's something not to be tolerated, no.
All the way from that in the court. Another question for Brian. You have a reputation of being the most respected and clean, one of the most clean defensemen ever play the game. So, with no replays and no repercussions whatsoever, who would you fear and why?
Well, it's funny. I can say it now because I became friends with him recently, with Claude Lemieux. And he scared me so many times that I owe him at least one.
Go ahead. Thank you. Donnie, congratulations on your new position. You're always a Yankee, and you are a Hall of Famer. I'm just curious, you're working with Joe Torre so many years now recently. One has to assume you're heavily influenced by him, maybe going in, you're going to use your own style. What about Billy Martin? What influence he had on you and moving forward into managing? And I had one for Brian, too, if I may. Brian, during the '94 Stretch Cup, you talked about the pain of being traded. A big person who was a part of that team was Mike Gartner. How did that affect the locker room? You know, he lasted the whole year, he was traded at the end of the year. How did that affect the locker room? And I know Keenan wanted Noonan. How did it affect you? How did it affect the team? Thanks.
What's your thought? I think I'm older than you. I'll probably forget this question before you Well, Joe's been a huge influence on me.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But I think as a coach, I mean, I'm taking from everybody. As a player, the same thing. I'm taking all the time. I'm taking good, I'm taking bad. So there's a lot of guys I played for that I liked and loved the way they treated, because during the days I played, we changed managers pretty much every year. I played for a lot of guys, Billy 3 times, Bruce twice, I mean, on and on. So we changed a lot. So you take from everybody. You take as a player, the guys I liked the way they played, the way they treated people. I said, that's, you know, when you see a guy treat somebody bad, and you're like, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to look at myself like that. So you take from the good managers. Billy's the guy I'll take from. Some good, some bad. You know, Billy was the kind of guy that, you know, he was fired up, and that game came on, man. It was like, it's game time. He didn't care about anything else, nothing else. And the bad thing with Billy, he made you feel this way. If I went 0 for 4 and you seen Billy in the lobby, it was like that was personal. You did that to him. On purpose, just to piss him off. So I don't want guys feeling that way. Yogi, like, seen Yogi later, and it was over. He knew it was over. So I'm going to take it from everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think certainly when Mike Gardner has been traded in, talk about a great human being, you know.
Yeah.
He's one of the best, just like Adam Graves. But, you know, Mike Keenan was kind of the lightning rod of that team, you know, and Mark was Messier was the guy that was keeping things together in the locker room. So anything that was happening in that, the trades and quotes in the paper, were all kind of shocking when they happened, but it was like, okay, you know, we got to practice, we got another game, and you're playing so often, and we're near the end of the season. As we're going, we got to get, you know, this team in shape for the playoffs. So, you know, you move on. As shocking as that day is when friends get traded or guys that are important to your team, there's nothing you can do that's going to make it any better except welcome the new guys in and play hard and let's figure this out. There's no bringing a guy in for a week and then retrading him and bring him back. This is your team, and let's go from here.
Thank you.
Here we are.
This question is for Donnie. Great to see you guys tonight. Donnie, one thing I always look forward to every year is the Hall of Fame quote. The guy who asked the question before me made a great point and said, "This mind you are a Hall of Famer." Same for me. A lot of owners always say that to qualify for the Hall of Fame, you have to be dominant at your position whenever you play, and you were, quite frankly. There are some guys in the Hall of Fame, and no disrespect to any of them, like the Kirby Puckett, who have very, very similar numbers to you. I think we might have had 4 Gold Gloves and an MVP award. Is the Hall of Fame something you really think about every year because it hasn't come? And how much do you think it impacts your vote that you really didn't get a chance to play as many postseason games as a guy like Kirby Puckett?
Well, I think obviously guys are measured by championships. It changes people's view. Obviously, Kirby winning 2 is important. For me, I kind of look at it like I played all my cards, you know, and I'm pretty much proud of those cards. I mean, I went out, I got ready to play, I played the best I could. I feel like I, you know, tried to work as hard as I could, kind of got the most out of my ability. I really wasn't that talented, to be honest with you. And my mom was like 44 or something when she had me. My brothers are all 6'4", 220. All she left me with these things, right? But I don't know. The Hall of Fame, again, it's something my career is what it is. Judge it, and it's not going to change anything one way or the other. There's a lot of great players in there. There's probably a lot of great players that I like that aren't in. A guy like Jim Rice who just got in, to me, he was unbelievable. This guy playing against him, he was like a machine. And I'm thinking, this guy's not getting in? Like, you know, so it's really not that, obviously it's something I'm proud of my career, and you'd love to get a good chance to get into the Hall of Fame, but not necessarily, I can't really sit here and say I deserve it.
Well, not talking about the Hall of Fame, but let me ask you this. I mean, you had that stretch of 5, 6 years that were you know, off the chart years. They weren't just great years, they were like all-time spectacular years. Then you start to have the back problems. How difficult is it, well, you know, for you in particular at the time, to know I can't do what I used to do because I'm not the same way? And, you know, struggling to get to that point, knowing that I can't get back there. How difficult was that?
To be honest with you, I kind of feel like I bought in to what everybody told me. I really feel like I should have kept working. I really feel like I always worked